Now, each year, on the 11th day of the 11th month, we pause as a nation and as a people to pay tribute to you, to thank you, to honor you, the heroes over the generations who have served this country of ours with distinction.
Don Bowles, born and raised in Buffalo, New York. Great place to be from.
For it is in that sacrifice that we see the enduring spirit of America.
Well, my name is Doreen Chambers and I was born in Watford, Hertfordshire. It's northwest of London.
You and your families have sacrificed to protect that powerful promise that all of us hold so dear. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
My name is Thomas Vincent Chambers, usually known as Tom Chambers. Born on the 7th of July, 1920.
So long after the battle's end, long after our heroes come home, we stay by their side.
My name is Jim Stalker. I was born in a town called Jamestown, New York.
In this country, we take care of our own, especially our veterans who have served us so bravely and sacrificed so selflessly in our name.
My name is Mary Jane Morrison. I was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, grew up in Easton, Connecticut, a very small town just north of there, about an hour out of New York City.
On this day, we thank all of our veterans from all of our wars, not just for your service to this country, but for reminding us why America is and always will be the greatest nation on earth.
My name is David Israel. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and spent all my life till 18 when I went into the Army in Brooklyn. Never left Brooklyn.
Whenever our freedoms have come under assault, you've responded with resolve, time and again, at home and abroad.
My name's Keith Stewart. I was born in Topeka, Kansas.
We must commit this day and every day to serving you as well as you've served us.
Tom Gilly. I was born in El Paso, Texas.
You'll be welcomed home to an America that will forever fight for you, just as hard as you fought for us.
Well, my name is Laurie, and the last name is Clark. Born and raised in California.
Because no one who fights for this country overseas should ever have to fight for a job, or a roof over their head, or the care that they have earned when they come home.
Robert J. Zilke, born in San Francisco, California.
God bless you. God bless our veterans. God bless our men and women in uniform. And God bless these United States of America.
When I heard that the Wrens were opening for people, a school friend and I decided we'd go. So we went up to Queen Anne's Mansions in London and signed up and did a math test and came home. And then in the next few days we heard that we were accepted.
During World War II, I was a newsboy and I had 160 customers daily. And so I literally lived that war through delivering and folding and newspapers and going around and visiting my customers. I was interested in history and what was going on in the world, and so I knew that I was going to go into the service.
I was drafted, and it was towards the end of the war.
My draft board was getting real close to my number, and I didn't want to be in the Army. My two brothers were in World War II in the Navy, and so I chose the Navy.
I lost my dad this summer after I graduated from high school. I was going to go to the University of Arizona and get educated and play football. He passed away, and of course I had been an instant student anyway. So I didn't. I started to community college, or junior college we called it. So after the first semester, we were finished with our last classes, and I said to my friend, let's stop by the post office on our way out. And the only recruiting there was the Navy, and they said, we've got enough people for 6 months. So next we found out where the Air Force was, and they were taking 2 people a month only, and they already had 2. But they tested us, and out of a test score from scale from 1 to 10, they were taking people who passed from 8 to 10. So we passed, and he said, well, it'll probably be another month. Well, 2 days later he called us. One of them changed his mind, the other one got drafted the day before into the Army. So off we went to Los Angeles.
I was a junior in engineering, mechanical engineering, at Stanford University. On the day that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, I was sitting in sipping a Coke. We all went home horrified. I went right over and went to the Navy.
I was going to the university in Atlanta at the time, and they were drafting. A lot of my friends were being drafted into the Army, and so I decided I didn't want to be a ground pounder. I enlisted in the Air Force.
I was an apprentice at the Blackburn Aircraft Company, Brough, East Yorks. 3 of us apprentices used to play cards in the lunch hour on a newspaper spread on a back bench. And there was this advert, why not be an air-minded sailor? And there was a picture of an aircraft carrier with 3 swordfish flying. And we all had the same idea at once. Why don't we do that? Let's take off next Monday and go and join. Come Tuesday morning, the other 2 guys backed out. They both had girlfriends, apparently, and the girlfriends wouldn't let them go. And I wasn't fortunate enough to have a girlfriend, so I made it through. 2 weeks after the war started in Europe, and I joined the Royal Navy.
I was already a physician in residency, and what they pay residents is not much. And one of my advisors was in the Army Reserves as a physician, and he told me what they pay each month, and that would pay my rent and a few other bills that I had. So I joined the Reserves literally just to earn money.
We are celebrating America today. Just as war is freedom's cost, disagreement is freedom's privilege, and we honor it here today.
I was first in Germany. I was a company commander. My duty was cut short by demands to go to Vietnam. Let's see, it was 63, 64. I was in Germany. 66 is when I was called to Vietnam.
Whereas in Highgate, it was in a boys' school that had evacuated.
I was in the infantry, went over to Germany as an infantryman, spent some time in combat engineers, and then I was luckily switched to a military intelligence outfit.
I was in 4 years. My first assignment was in NAS Barbers Point, Oahu.
So I spent the first part of my tour in northern Japan.
But somehow it always seems quite fitting to me that this day comes deep in autumn, when the colors are muted and the days seem to invite contemplation.
The training for Vietnam was in Fort Bragg after Germany. It was 3 months of intensive counterinsurgency training.
We fixed radios. We had to learn how to build a radio, how to fix it, and everything.
So they dressed us up in khaki and trained us in machine gun firing and sort of things commandos do. Although it wasn't really long enough to make us into good commandos, I didn't think.
Strength is a prudent warning to the belligerent that aggression need not go unanswered. Peace fails when we forget what we stand for. It fails when we forget that our republic is based on firm principles, principles that have real meaning, that with them, we are the last best hope of man on earth. Without them, we are little more than the crust of a continent.
And so I thought, well, I'll just go in and use the aircraft batteries. All I had to do was call the tower on 4 frequencies. Anyway, there was this loud voice from the back. He said, "Hey, what are you doing?" So that was my husband, Tom. Not at the time, but my eventual husband. So. And we both did the Daily Telegraph crossword puzzle. So, I said, what do you have for 19 across? I think it's a way to start, isn't it? And then he asked me to go to the Royal Naval and Royal Marine Ball in Carlisle, and I thought, well, why not? So I did. And that was the beginning.
We had a couple of barracks full of Kentuckians, and it was funny because we had about 4 guys from New York City, and they were just miserable because all these Kentuckians picked on them.
We rescued a Korean fishing boat with 70 Koreans on it, made sure that they got back into port, and of course I got the word while we were out at sea about the arrival of my baby daughter.
I bought my first 35 millimeter at the PX in northern Japan. It was called a PAX 35, just a real small 35 millimeter. In my first roll of film, everything came out, all 24 films. It was Armed Forces Day, and I was taking pictures of the planes, and the Japanese people were there. So I did quite a few. None of them was me in it. I was looking for pictures of me with my uniform, and the only one I can remember is I took a picture of myself in the barracks with my camera in a mirror.
Well, they told us that there was a canal right out there outside the base. They said, this thing floods. And I looked at it at the time, and about 10 feet down there was this little stream running, and I thought, that's impossible. Well, it isn't impossible in Texas, because when the storm's there, it is stormy. And that thing would fill it full of water.
I applied for submarines, and I made them, and it is the best darn duty in the Navy.
We lost a plane off the north coast of Japan to Russians, and lost one officer. They all parachuted out. He hit the wall next to the ocean and drowned.
We were constantly worried about Viet Cong capturing us and being prisoners of war. Every minute over there was tense.
It makes a funny story. We're all dressed up in khaki, Sten guns and whatever, and feeling a little bit apprehensive because we knew we weren't very well trained. But fortunately, when we got to Honam, which was the name of this island, and charged ashore, there were 3 American Seabees on the shore laughing at us. And they got there first, I guess. And I guess I don't like being laughed at. You understand, there was quite a bit of rivalry between the US Navy and the Royal Navy. And being laughed at by the US Navy was nothing we really relished. But it was probably a lot better than charging up a beach against Japanese machine gun fire.
My father was a World War I veteran. We raised the flag and lowered it as part of a daily activity. It was important to him, and I just think country was important, and he taught me the respect of that.
Sure. So I said, okay. I got on it, and this is my first time. And I start to raise it so I can get just a little bit more distance in close to see if we had any patrol boats or anything. And what do I see? I see a Japanese twin-engine bomber pulling out of a dive, coming right at us, dead ahead. Obviously, he knew we were there, even though all we had is one periscope up. But there must have been somebody else around who either saw us or picked us up somehow. And anyway, and here comes this airplane pulling out like this, going over, and right behind him are 2 big bombs coming up and out. If you don't think I was ready to leave ship, I said, oh, Jesus Christ. Push the button, captain to the bridge immediately.
Peace is only maintained and won by those who have clear eyes and brave minds.
First went back and visited the folks and gave them hugs and told them I loved them.
I was away from home. I had married my college sweetheart a year and a half after going into the service, and I guess a couple of weeks after we tied the knot in a Navy chapel, by the way, we got orders that in 5 months we were going to be leaving for Korea. As it turned out, by the time I headed out for Korea, my wife was 4 months pregnant. So our baby was born while I was over there.
Yes, I was overseas. I didn't have any leave. I came back in 54, Well, I didn't really have a home anymore then.
I didn't tell my folks knew I was coming home. I'd been in Japan 2.5 years. Walked in and surprised them. And my little brother, who was born when I was 18 years old.
I was delighted because our reduction gears were getting a little noisy, and a submarine, that's the death knell. They track you by sound.
I was away from home. That was the one thing I missed was the pies.
Things were still tough in England. The rationing after the war, not too many people realised.
For the promise that God made to Joshua, I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee.
I became a lawyer and spent the rest of my life being a country lawyer in the rural part of Monterey County.
I had decided that I wanted to go on to graduate school, business school.
Could have gone to work for FAA when I got out as a control tower operator and air route controller, but I decided to go to college instead because of the GI. Transferred to the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and got a Bachelor of Science in Geology.
I was a stockbroker most of my life.
My degree is basically liberal arts. I took all the real estate classes. I just took everything.
I have two sons from a previous marriage, and my wife has 2 sons from her previous marriage, so we have a blended family.
I joined 4 different military organizations when I was writing a book about my military experiences, and they were the best people that I met in the United States. The title of the book is called The Day the Thunderbirds Cried.
Well, worked on the Mercury control system. Got to know most of the astronauts, but the early ones, the first 7. The last job I had was running the Shuttle Avionics Integration Lab, and that was a pretty tough job. After I quit NASA, I worked for a small company, Eagle Engineering. I was chairman of the board on that. I wasn't because I was the smartest, because there were a bunch of smart people there. But I developed a reputation for getting people to work together. So
I went to work for Boeing.
And why they had to be brave for us.
I think I would have stayed in the Army if I continued to have command positions, because I was very satisfied and I thought I was pretty good at it. I'm very proud of the time that I spent in the service.
I never thought about a satisfying aspect of it. As a matter of fact, when the war ended, and one of the questions you asked is, what did you do when you got back from the war? Guys, when the war ended, they just wanted to get back to life. Their lives had been disrupted. We were 18 years old. We all had the GI Bill, and that was the greatest revolutionary force in America from my point of view. I mean, it opened up whole worlds for people who never could have gone to college.
I think the military training and the travel, I love to travel, and it's a wonderful experience that was afforded me by the Navy.
We'll see a little bit of the world. It was amazing to see Japan and the people and their soldiers, which would be dressed in almost what you call a white canvas.
I went into a submarine. You are one family. We did a good job. We fought hard. We made a good record, and so we served.
It's the best thing that I have ever done.
I have never lost faith in my country and belief and a respect for people that are willing to undertake some chunk of their lives to go in and serve in whatever capacity.
Let us continue to disagree if we must about the war, but let us not let it divide us as a people any longer.
The discipline that you receive in the military guides you for the rest of your life.
Oh yes, made lots of friends, and for a girl who lived, did all the usual things, went to school, lived in a small town, it was wonderful. It opened up the world to me.
So I guess the skill or the perception that was adaptable was just an awareness of people, and awareness of a sort of a youthful sense of command, and yet not really in command, because what you did had to be somehow part of what everybody wanted to do or was trained to do.
We'll know it's a good place to grow up sometimes and see things and learn to cooperate and work together and learn a little discipline.
I mean, the discipline of military service it doesn't go away from me. I've always been real patriotic, and I thought it was something I did for my country.
I grew up.
Work with other people. It was very good. Well, because it helps you to grow. Learns you how to live and work with other people and to share a load in the configuration that whatever you're in, and to adapt to whatever the conditions are.
War is insanity. And our hope is that by doing this, by speaking to young people, by making them alert and letting them learn something about what war really was like, that it can be prevented from ever happening again. So far, we've been very unsuccessful. We don't give up. We keep trying.